Hi everybody, hope you're all doing well and enjoying your holidays, having a break from studying. So this week I want to talk about Scottish cinema. So first we're going to look at some Scottish films. Some I think you will already know, and others I know will be completely new. So of course, if you have time during the holidays, it could be a good idea to try to watch some of them in order to practice and improve your English, and especially with the Scottish accent. Because in a few of them, okay, they speak in English, but also Scots, that dialect or language, there's an argument about that, which I've spoken about in previous videos. So this can be a good way to practice your English and your Scots. And then we'll look at some famous Scottish actors and actresses who you'll see in other British films and even Hollywood movies as well. So first of all, I'm going to talk about Trainspotting. Trainspotting is a very famous film. I know some of you have already told me that you've seen it, but for those who haven't, Trainspotting is a tough and difficult film, but really interesting. It was adapted from a book by Irvine Welsh, and Danny Boyle directed the film. So Trainspotting is set in Edinburgh in the 1980s. So the 80s in Scotland was a very difficult time with heroin, other drugs, unemployment, and poverty. So the movie focuses on all of these themes, and at the same time, it can also be quite comical as well. So the main actor, Ewan McGregor, that was his first big film, the one that got him famous, and then Ewan McGregor went on to be in many other films like Star Wars and things like that. It is very difficult to understand as the accent is quite strong. It's a very working class accent from Edinburgh, but I definitely recommend it. You could always use subtitles. Another film that is very famous, and I know many of you have heard of it or even seen it as well, is Braveheart. So Braveheart focuses on the protagonist William Wallace, who in Scotland is seen as an absolute hero, and it focuses on the wars of independence, which was between Scotland and England. Some of the film isn't so historically accurate, and the main actor, Mel Gibson, isn't even Scottish. He's Australian. But still, as Scots, we love it, and people seem to love it in other countries as well. So if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it to know a little bit more of the history between. This one is probably one you haven't heard of. It's called Sunshine on Leith. I think it was released about 5 years ago, so it's newer than the other ones. It's actually a musical, and it focuses on a love story. And so the music is from a very famous Scottish band called the Proclaimers. They also have an album of the same name, Sunshine on Leith. So if you like musicals and kind of love stories, then this is definitely one for you. And if you're interested in hearing the music from the Proclaimers as well, then it's a good option to do so. Finally, I'm sure this will be new for you as well. It's one from the 80s, from the beginning, 1981, called Gregorys Girl. It's a coming of age romantic comedy which is set in just a town just outside Glasgow. And again, it's a love story between teenagers, and it focuses around football as well. As you know, in Scotland, particularly in the west, Glasgow, where I'm from, in the towns, we are football fanatics. So I know a lot of like my parents and other people's parents really identify with that because it's from their time, and they say that's how life was like in the 80s in Scotland. So I'd recommend that as well. Okay, now let's look at some famous Scottish actors. So the first one is Sean Connery. Sean Connery was the first ever to portray the character of James Bond. I'm sure many of you know James Bond is really famous, and he starred in 7 James Bond movies. Another very famous actor, who I mentioned before, Ewan McGregor, who starred in Trainspotting. After that, he's gone on to be in numerous films, for example, Star. Calm Down, Angels and Demons, The Impossible, and many others. Another very famous actor from Scotland is Gerard Butler. who you may know from some films such as The Bounty Hunter, P.S. I Love You, and 300. Okay, and some famous Scottish actresses.